Good evening. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Board of Directors meetings and committee meetings are open to the public, but are not public meetings. All school district residents who wish to make public comment should sign in prior to the start of the meeting and request to speak during citizens' participation. Public comment is welcome, and all issues will be referred to the appropriate board committee or administrator. Comments will also be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be made available by contacting the business office. Jeremy Davis is excused this evening, and so is Kathleen Pratt. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we jump into the rest of this, some housekeeping. The board held an executive session prior to the start of tonight's meeting related to a personnel/legal matter, and the board will go into executive session immediately following this meeting related to a mandatory annual Act 44 safety and security update by our Chief of Police. So at the end of the meeting, if people could kindly exit, this board will stay in this room for the second executive session. Any notices or communications? No notices or communications this evening, which brings us to citizens' participation, and I'm seeing none. Brings us right into routine approvals. There's a separation of 5.4, which is a personnel, from a roll call vote. So I'll entertain a motion for 5.1, which is the agenda, 5.2, the financial report, and 5.3, approval of meal prices. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion? Hearing none, roll call. Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Final item on routine approvals is 5.4. It's the HR. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion?
I don't have a question, but on this report is the Act 93 for administrators, and we've met several times about this, and all of us have had questions. But I can't vote for this simply because we're going to be paying way more than I think what our taxpayers can afford. 4% raise across the board, almost 4% raise across the board is just, I don't know any other business that's paying that. And I can't go for it. And that's.
No, and I understand. But it's my choice this evening to bring this to a vote. Unless there's a motion to table it again, it's going to go for a roll call. So is there any additional questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, roll call. Michelle?
No.
Alice?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Items for board action 6.1 is adopt the general fund budget. If you look at this particular item this evening, the first motion that I'm going to ask for is the administration recommendation to adopt a 25-26 general fund budget at 1.5% real estate tax. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question on the 1.5?
Not a question, but a comment, Mr. President. I do think that the 1.5, based upon the administration's recommendation, helps us for the future to build what we need to be able to make reasonable decisions for the next few years in the future. My fear is if we don't go the 1.5, we will certainly pay for it next year and have to possibly have a spike of a tax increase, and I'd rather avoid that. Thank you.
Kenny, I'll also say a quick thing. I also appreciate, we've been getting these updates for any of the public that wants the back kind of history of working through this budget. We've been getting updates for months about it, and I do appreciate all of the efforts that the business office and admin team have done in order to kind of cut back some costs and just make it as I believe it's as lean as possible in order to kind of make those similar kinds of changes as Al's talking about in terms of keeping programming, but also committing to the VOTEC school. So, thank you.
We're going to do a vote roll call, and the way it's going to work here this evening, if it does not pass, we'll move on to a second motion that I'll present to the board. If it passes, obviously that's obsolete. I appreciate Alice and Al's comments. My vote obviously is going to be where I stand. I support the ACTI at 1%. I don't think this evening that 0.5. I'm not going to land that direction. Everybody can vote their conscience, but the 1%. Understanding the reason behind it in terms of the bond and moving forward for the taxpayers makes sense to me. Any additional? Roll call. Roll call's on 1.5. Michelle?
No.
Alice?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
No.
Ryan?
No.
I vote no. Second motion, having 1.5 not passed, is the board to take action on a 2025-2026 general fund budget of 1% real estate tax increase. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question on that motion?
Not a question, but just to follow up, since I feel like it's a little odd, I want there to be a budget that passes, and also given numbers that I'm seeing and ideas that I think people are holding, just stating that I will probably vote no because of wanting the 1.5, but I do support the budget in general and funding our schools.
And also just an additional comment of why I'll have to vote no on that. But besides looking at the future and the fact that I'm going to be here next year, and I'm hoping several of you will be here as well, but a 1% going towards ACTI, which I support 100%, means that then there's really, for the general population here of the school, we're not really doing anything. And we just supported an increase for our Act 93 team and the other contractual agreements that we have. If we agree to those things, I'm not sure how we can't agree to provide the resources to make that happen. That's confusing to me. All right, thank you.
Well, just for some clarity, and I'm not saying you're speaking to anyone in particular, but in the last prior meetings, this board and the audience is listening to this great unknown that comes back from the audit. And the audit comes back with a windfall every single year. And unless I don't want to put words in someone's mouth, if you do the math and you're down it makes $230,000, whatever, and your windfall $600, $700, you're paying back X, and you're still coming out at the next year's audit on the plus side.
We have also received information quite often about how that is not, that's not just free money that is not used, that has gone into into reconciling the budget for the next year. So correct me if I'm incorrect, but part of those funds that look to be more money than we were maybe anticipating from the audit are then going into ensuring that this next budget is able to be lowered a bit.
Any additional revenue or less than expenditures rolls into the following budget year's preparation. We have not historically advance counted revenue for the oncoming budget year.
And I would just like to say, to kind of support what President Hassinger said, I mean, I'm going into my 6th budget cycle, and I will say the business office and Belinda and everyone else has been fabulous at projecting kind of the district's needs. And then also when we come in, and there's been several of us that met with Belinda, and Dr. Perrin and Dr. Matzner several times during this budget cycle in particular. And they've been really creative on being able to reduce expenditures without impacting students or programs. And I think with just like the teachers' contract negotiation and the Act 93, Belinda and her team have probably been very careful on budgeting with what they think that they can pay for. And like President Hassinger said, every year we kind of get this surplus, or we ended up getting more from the state than we anticipate. And I think we've made it clear in this case that we're gonna hedge our bets and borrow some funds from capital improvement and 5-year project stuff to not have to put the burden on the taxpayers, and we'll be able to pay that back, I think, once we get our funding from the state when they settle their budget.
I'm glad you mentioned the Capital Projects Fund. I think it's important to keep that in mind should this vote go through, that is something we will have to keep our eye on in case that doesn't get replenished, because that is, a future thinking endeavor that is necessary for maintaining our facilities. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I've thought pretty hard about this as well, because I don't want to raise taxes at all, but I also understand that the cost of everything for the district goes up all the time, and I know we get this surplus, but this and we don't know what the state's going to send us, but we just voted on an Act 93 contract. We have a teacher's contract, and I actually don't know what those assumed potential raises in those contracts amount to as a whole for the district. So I don't know what that impact's going to be on the district for next year and the following year. I just don't want to get into a spot where now we have to go 2.5% or 3% because we went 0 and 1% for so long that now we end up like some of these other school districts that are doing 5 and 6%. I don't want to be that person. I'd rather do a little bit and make it easier on everybody to take it than slam everybody at one time. But it's only 0.5%, and you're like, I'm stressing that, but I'd be stressing more if we were voting at 4.5%.
No, agreed. I think that's one of the reasons. I won't put words in Al's mouth, but based off of what we've both been talking about tonight, that is one of the reasons to advocate for the 1.5%, because that is going towards operating funds outside of a CTI. You're looking at 0.5%, which is small, not negligible. I acknowledge that, but that is effectively out of that the only amount that is going towards general operating of the school district rather than a CTI. I also just to remind, I think it's important tonight to just think of all of the summary of things that we've talked about that, for the near future, thankfully, federal funding is still secure for us, but that is also something that is potentially on the table for revisiting the budget, not next school year, but the following school year in terms of something that may not be as available to us. So may end up, and again, an unknown, may end up in some necessary increases there as well. So lots to think about always for the budget, but just to remind people of kind of the specifics there.
No, I totally get what you're saying, but I will say in closing that it's actually Belinda, Dr. Perrin, Dr. Matzner, and their team that's kind of given me the faith and confidence to be able to go for the 1%, because they've done a great job and forecasting and budgeting and doing what they need to do. So I think that we're going to be fine after the state approves their budget.
Mike, I'm going to echo what you say. We haven't sat in any of these meetings where we heard that the district was recommending taking away by our vote money from donations to school resources to anything. I haven't heard it in any of our meetings. I know there's been some suggestions of it, but I haven't heard that that's what we have to do. We've sat through budget cycles for 7 years now for me, and we've been zero. And still had a surplus. So that's just where I land on that 1%.
Belinda, can I ask? We are taking the 25 away from GAEF, correct?
Yes, that's recognized as a deduction.
So we are taking money.
Where was that that was a board question, not a motion where the board directed the district to do that. I mean, the board could have ultimately said, whatever that donation is, instead of cutting them off at the knees, you give half of that or a percentage of that. Unless I missed that in any of our board meetings, that is not at all what I came in here expecting to hear.
That is what she said last meeting. That was on one of the slides.
Yeah,
that we
one
were
of the
taking that
cuts
off.
made.
Are we also saying if we would have voted for the 1.5, you were doing the same thing?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, I do not support that, no matter whether we're voting on 1.5 or 1%. I don't think you do that in any program arbitrarily across the board. I'm just one.
So I do also agree with this. I said that, I think, the night that it was on the slide. My confusion now lies in where that leaves us for a vote when that was information that was presented to us, because that was not something we discussed at that time. I am in favor of that. Maybe I'll direct this question towards somebody else. I kind of need the board to be paying attention so we can figure out what we're going to do about it. If that is something that people took issue with, that people would like to support, as a GAEF board member, I support this. I mean, I've spoken about the benefits that it provides to the school district. But I also know that was very clearly put up as an item to be taken off, and then we didn't discuss it at that time.
Well, I can make this very simple. It doesn't matter whether we voted 1.5 or 1%. We got the answer that was going to be done, and the board directs it as a budget. I'll put it up as a vote, whether we support or don't support. And everybody in here can publicly make their stance on whether they support it or they don't. Whether they support it as a whole, or whether we can meet and come up with an appropriate figure instead of taking the legs out from underneath the program that's been here.
So my question is more about the process for this evening, because if I'm correct, we're voting on the budget that, as it stands, being presented to us, which means in order to make a change to that, we would not be able to vote on that document tonight. Am I correct in assuming that, given the procedures for how this usually works?
I only know what the motion is. I don't know, Belinda, you can explain the impact. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so.
Because it would change a line item in the budget is what we're talking about. So that would require new documents to vote on.
Correct, new documents to vote on. It's a change of $25,000, an increase in expenditures, and which would decrease the fund balance by $25,000. And it would change the appropriation of the numbers on the forms that we have prepared, either for the 1.5 or the 1%.
But for purposes of substance, right, if the motion were on the table were to be revised, we'll just say for the sake of it, we have the 1.0 on the table with the impact of GAF, and you could revise the motion to be the 1% real estate increase, but directing at the same time that $25,000 impact not be realized. You can make the motion. If that's right, Melinda, if that's how the paperwork is currently would reflect the $25,000. I'm just.
We would not have the paperwork this evening to sign for the $25,000 because we would need to make the change into the software and so forth.
But you would have the ability to make a motion on the impact. That's what my question is, not on the paperwork itself, but you can make a motion.
The motion on addition of $25,000 of expenditures.
You could revise the motion, only because you've got to get it passed soon before June 30th.
That's correct.
Yes, right.
I believe you would also need public comment on that. correct?
it's-
Because that's not a
'cause it's
motion on the table.
changing.
They're just revising the motion. Wouldn't, you
Can I
wouldn't
clear
need-
this up real quick? Because if not, I'm actually going to I'm going to entertain an executive session. I just fundamentally don't understand what's happening here. We vote on a budget that says a 1% or 1 point, doesn't matter what we vote on. We vote on a budget. The district gets the budget and the allotment of money that they're to use. We are not voting on line items. If the board wants to keep a certain program or a directive or donation, whatever it is, we direct the district to keep that. They figure out how to do that within their means based upon the budget that we voted on. So I don't think it calls for another motion. It doesn't table this motion. We can move forward, and the board can give a directive like we've done before and said, the board wants to keep a donation of X. Let's figure out how we're doing it. Is that correct?
Understood. That's fine. Just want to make sure everyone voting, to Michelle's point, is aware of the impact of what this vote would have been and understand that the board directive can change that account back to the 25,000. I totally agree with you. I'm just trying to make sure everybody voting understands what
Yeah,
they're voting.
that is helpful to me because I think what I was thinking you were saying was like, here's the budget, here are all of the numbers we've been looking at, add $25,000, which in my mind would change. I mean, that's a small portion of the overall budget, but in my mind that would change the impact to taxes and all. But you're saying keep it at 1% and then somehow that will be reallocated.
I'm telling you, our vote this evening doesn't change whether or not the board supports any type of expenditure. There's a budget as a whole. We're not voting line item by line item.
No, but I do think that is important. I'm not gonna split hairs further than that. I'm asking a question so that I can understand what the impact is to the overall budget. We have been looking at it in great detail in terms of what's there and what's not. So I do think it matters a little bit of understanding. I'm just asking for more information. I genuinely agree with what it is that you are aiming to do in terms of, wanting to support GAEF. So I just feel like that's an important thing to understand. I think my question has been addressed. I believe I understand now what that would look like. I just don't know how if that changes the vote at all.
The impact would either be capital reserve, them funding less to capital reserve, or reduction of the contingency budgetary reserve. The expenses can stay the same. It's one of those two accounts that are going to change.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Any additional before roll call? The vote this evening is on 1.0, 2025, 2026. Alice?
This is for the 1%.
Yes.
I will vote no.
Tim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Michelle?
No.
Al?
No.
I vote yes.
It's not enough to pass.
Right.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
There's no other options. I mean, I'll go back through 1.5 again if you want. I'll go back through 1.0, or we'll be back in here in 2 weeks with additional board members, and we'll go back through the vote.
And it'll have to be prior to 2 weeks because it has to be before.
I understand.
I'm just
That's right.
a special meeting, just making sure.
That's fine. Yep.
If I may, the special meeting would have to be within this week simply because of vacation schedules and things of that nature. I apologize for that notice, unless you want to have additional other support from the business office.
Can you give us, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. We may be able to track down a board member for a vote.
Sure.
Sorry about the delay. Full transparency, Jeremy Davis was unavailable to attend in person. We've not had a discussion other than, is he available for a vote? In all fairness, he wasn't watching the meeting or hearing anything about the meeting. I'm going to entertain a motion as from the start for 1.5. If that fails, we go to 1.0. We're just having a complete do-over, not only for Jeremy's sake, but for full transparency. Any problems or questions with that? May I have a motion for 1.5 budget increase?
So moved.
Second.
Question on 1.5.
Perhaps, it just popped into my head, and I'll be quick about it and concise, but perhaps given the fact that Jeremy was not able to be in attendance earlier, I'm going to state for the record why I am in support of 1.5, and anyone else who feels moved to do that, that 1% is going towards ACTI, so really that's looking at a 0.5% that goes towards other general operating costs for the school district that are necessary for maintaining programming now and in the future and to avoid later bigger tax increases. I think that that's valuable as we head down the road. Thanks.
Jeremy, are you on board? Do you hear that?
I couldn't quite hear you. What did you say, Kenny? I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure Alice had given why she's supporting 1.5.
Yeah, I got the gist of that. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional question on 1.5 before roll call?
Not a question, but a comment. And I, like Mike, really appreciate what the administration has done, is that we have a budget, regardless of which one we go with, we are not cutting programs or people, and that's encouraging. I had mentioned previously about the family navigators that we would like to make a full commitment to them at some point, since they've been with the district for 3 years. And according to the Pupil Personnel Services Advisory Committee, they've found them invaluable. I'd like for us to maybe hopefully at least next year, maybe make that full commitment. But I would also say, and Kenny, I appreciate your remarks that we typically come back with a surplus, but Belinda and her team, and being in a public school government entity, we cannot overspend. We have to budget conservatively, and we need to continue doing that. And as Alice has pointed out, whatever surplus we do have goes towards the next year's budget. So I just think it would be a little bit irresponsible if we didn't at least part of this increase towards our general budget to meet contractual agreements. And again, we just voted on an Act 93 agreement and a teachers agreement where they are getting some increases, and then we need to provide the resources to fulfill that. Or we put Belinda and the team here in a tough position, and especially for the coming years. Thank you.
Any additional question on 1.5 motion on the floor? Hearing none, roll call. Alice?
Yes.
Tim?
No.
Mike?
No.
Ryan?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Al?
Yes.
Jeremy?
No.
I vote no. May I have a motion for 1 point? I'm sorry. Ryan, did I call you? I thought I did. May I have a motion for 1 point, a tax increase of 1.0?
So moved.
Second.
Question on the floor? Hearing none. Mike?
Yes.
Al?
No.
Ryan?
Yes.
Michelle?
No.
Tim?
Yes.
Alice?
No.
Jeremy?
Yes.
I vote yes. Is that 5?
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Jeremy, we have several more items if you're available to vote on. 6.2, the establishment of taxes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call, Ryan.
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 6.3, resolution, homestead and farmstead exclusion. Question, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Jeremy?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 6.4, year-end transfer of capital projects fund. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Alice?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 6.5, Unity Park Boy Scout project that the young man's in attendance and spoke to us about. Thank you. Yeah,
So moved.
if we do have a question, I am going to call on you, though. But thank you. No, all good. I have a motion, please.
And second.
Do we have a question on this?
Just circling back to thank you for your presentation last time and for kind of waiting through the process for the vote tonight.
Kenny, I have a, Mr. Sellers, I want to thank you for coming up with the plan. And while I think it's a very nice plan, I'm not really sure that there is a purpose or a use for this at the school. And along with that, once it's built, then all the maintenance and everything else are going to be on the district and on the taxpayers. And as you saw, I'm not one for raising taxes. So while I appreciate everything that you've done, I mean, the location, it's on school property, and we already have an issue there with parking. And if you were doing it anywhere else, I think it would be great, but I can't support it on school property. But I do appreciate the fact that you did it. And I commend you for bringing it to us to do it. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to approve it, my vote. Everybody else can do what they want, but that's the only reason why, is because maintenance and I don't know what the school would actually do with it. So, but I appreciate the fact that you did it.
I have a couple of questions. If you want to step up, I actually have a couple of questions. Both of my sons were involved in Scouts. And a lot of what I'm familiar with, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, as Scouts take on projects and they do things, you guys have different groups and organizations that come together that do maintenance and cleaning, and just like with the cabins and everything else. I'm assuming you have a contingency plan in place that if there needed to be repairs at some point, or if it needed to be painted, the Scouts would be more than happy to probably put something together to take care of that. Am I wrong?
No, you are not wrong, sir. In fact, this kind of circles back to what your concern was. Because this is an Eagle Scout service project, there is kind of a condition that it is more of my responsibility to sort of maintain that, as it is my project. So the district should not be as concerned with that. However, there should be a specified amount of time for which I am required to maintain it. That is just up to the district, whatever they feel is necessary. But since it is my project, that is my responsibility, that I should be assigned to do for as long as is required.
I don't have any additional questions. Just thank you for answering that.
You're welcome.
Can we add that to the conditions that we had as part of the agenda? Is that something that we can add before we approve? Or, I mean, I'm glad to know that there is a contingency plan. Is that something that we can put in writing?
The problem, and council can help me, but from my years of experience, I think where we're at here is this vote's going to happen this evening, and for us to discuss or belabor what the contingency plan is, I think and trust in the administration understanding what Ms. Smyers' concern is, whether that's board concern or as a whole or not. We're going to vote yes or no on it and trust the administration. And this young man came in here and represented what was right. I have nothing but, I'm proud what you're doing. You deserve to be commended. And I trust that you're representing the truth here this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and it's not an unprecedented thing. I believe I remember you mentioning that one of the other structures in that same park is from an Eagle Scout project as well.
Correct. Unity Park was, in 2015, was originally done as a Boy Scout project, yes.
Right. So there is, that relationship there in already stands. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, I have no worries. I know Boy Scouts are always come prepared, so.
Okay, thank you. Certainly.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
greatly appreciate your candor.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions? Hearing none?
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
I have one other
Sorry, we
question.
didn't look left.
Does HARB need to approve this?
Does who?
HARB, the Historic Architectural Review Board. Are they? I didn't know. Because I know that's in the hysterical.
I think you're safe now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. And again, congratulations.
Yep, congrats.
We
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing your final
Thank you
project.
very much. Thank you.
Roll call. Ryan,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes, provided that he maintains it.
Jeremy,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Congratulations. sir.
Congratulations.
6.6, the Unified Indoor Program, the bocce ball, for lack of better words. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Jeremy,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim, Ryan,
Yes.
and I vote yes. 6.7, the high school sewer pump station renovation. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Jeremy,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Jeremy, that concludes our voting items. If you want to stay on for the informational items, you're welcome. If not, we can touch base at a later time. It's your choice.
Thank you.
The informational item 7.1, the 620 capitalization of assets. Anything there?
That policy was just reviewed at our policy committee this last week, and we were just changing the number from 5,000 to 10,000.
Thank you. Board committee reports? Program reports.
Yeah, just a couple of things quick. Our free summer meal program has started, actually just started today, runs through August 7th out of Gettysburg Area Middle School. It runs Monday through Thursday. It involves grab-and-go breakfast and in-person lunch for students that need that. Also, Camp Invention for our elementary schools, which is also going to be held at the middle school, runs from July 7th through July 10th. And as was mentioned earlier, this is our last board meeting basically for the summer. Our next meeting is in August.
Just for the sake of the public, in terms of the board committees, I'm assuming that those are also not holding meetings in the month of July.
That's correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to our next meeting is August 4th, 2025, 7 p.m. here at the Administration Building. Hearing nothing further, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Thank you. I just remind everybody